I was privileged to speak with Noelle Homsy from ENVI. She's one of the co-founders of the company, and the founders have been named in the list of the 50 most influential hoteliers recently. They are award-winning already, and they've only just launched their business after successfully achieving significant investment. And so she very, very kindly agreed to share with me some tips around gaining investment and what you have to do and what you have to think through to be successful in the world of tourism. So, welcome to episode 53. Glamping and unique holiday rentals are surging in popularity with the growing desire of customers to book holidays that deliver an experience. They are also the new business of choice for those wanting to improve their work-life balance. So how do you build a strong business like this that gives you the life you need and a great investment? I'm Sarah Riley, and I want to share what I've discovered after being immersed in this industry for over 20 years to inspire you to find out more about what's going on. Welcome, this is the business of glamping and unique holiday rentals. So Noelle, thank you so much for joining me today. We met in Slovenia, and I was totally intrigued by your business and your brand and what you're doing and what you're currently working on. And as a result, of course, I invited you to be on the podcast because I want to learn more. And I think others will want to learn more when they know that you exist, because what you do is incredibly unique. I haven't really seen it in this industry before. Obviously, it's in the hotel industry. We see it a lot, but not in this industry. So maybe we can start by asking you to explain a little bit more about ENVI and what it is.
Of course. Thank you, Sarah, first of all, for having me on your show. It's an honor for me. And you're totally right about not seeing, a similar model in the industry, and that's why we exist. So ENVI Lodges was created after or if we want to say as a result, but it's not exactly as a result of COVID, it had been in our minds for quite some time. We had seen a shift in how travelers choose or book their travels, and the purpose for which they travel, and what they look for when they travel. And we realized accommodation should also reflect this change of needs. We also realized that people are happy when they're outdoors. Nature makes them happy. They want to be connected with the environment. They want to give back to the environment, to the societies that host them or that welcome them. And they want to feel that they leave a positive impact wherever they go. And this is how the idea of ENVI came to life. We created ENVI to be a management company, a hotel management company, an operator, and a brand. And this means that we don't develop the lodges, we only operate them. And this gives us scale, which means we don't only restrict ourselves to owning and operating one location or one lodge, one resort. We can easily scale up by operating multiple lodges across the world, as long as we keep our values in place, our sustainability guidelines, our guest experience guidelines, and our standard operating procedures.
Absolutely. And I think that what really stuck out to me was the fact that you do have such strong values in the ENVI company, in the ENVI brand. And can you talk around a few of those, just a couple of examples of your sustainability pillars and why you chose them?
First of all, the name ENVI, ENVI, it's the first four letters of environment. So you can see how much we're connected to our commitment towards the environment, to the extent where we put it in our name. So sustainability really sits at the core of what we do. And it's not an afterthought. It's not a marketing, game that we're doing. We always preach against greenwashing, and we really want to do what's right genuinely, even if nobody's watching. And this is why we built all our guidelines, from design guidelines, technical standards, and operating standards, on 7 sustainability pillars. And these pillars range from design and construction, and then obviously go up to operations, and beyond operations. And for me, the most important pillar, if you want, I can start with that, is engaging guests. And here I want to draw on the difference between what we call sustainable tourism and ecotourism. Sustainable tourism is, let's say, providing opportunities to travelers to choose options with a lower impact on the environment, whether it's accommodation, transportation, food, experiences, activities. Whereas ecotourism is providing opportunities to guests to learn and to educate themselves. It goes beyond, only providing these options, but educating them, educating their kids, for them to change their habits and behaviors beyond their stay at the lodge. And this is what we aim to do at ENVI Lodges. And this is why engaging guests in our sustainability initiatives, in our activities, is very important to us. And it's one of our 7 pillars. Other pillars cover respecting the land when it comes to designing and building. So all our lodges will be made of, if you want to call them, temporary accommodation, which means they don't leave a permanent impact or permanent trace on the land. Another pillar covers energy and resources, where we get our electricity from, our water, how do we dispose of sewage around the site. Another pillar covers, of course, the societies that we interact with, how we give back to the societies around us that host us. An important pillar as well is food, eating responsibly, sourcing responsibly. What do we do with the wastage? Do we reduce waste? Do we compost and use it for the gardens? For example, we have standards that define the ratios of which our ingredients at the lodge have to come from the site. So we'll have an ENVI garden on each site in each ENVI lodge, where we grow vegetables, herbs, fruits, whatever can grow in this location. There's a certain ratio that should come from the site in terms of ingredients. And then another ratio should come from 50% should come from neighboring farms, from a certain radius. And this for us is very important. So we've covered the design, respecting the land, we've covered societies, we've covered guests, resources. I think that's it.
So really then a true regenerative business model. So looking at how you can regenerate those areas in which you are located as a business, not just make it your business sustainable in as much as just a light touch on the environment. So would you say that that's the case?
Yes, this is correct. If you want, now sustainability is old news. The industry is moving more towards regenerative because there's a lot of damage that has already been done. And it's our job and our responsibility to fix the mistakes of the past. And this is why we need regenerative tourism, in order to bring back the balance, in order to bring us back to, the zero line, the baseline. Sustainability is leaving a minimal impact or leaving no impact on the environment where you're at, whereas regenerative means leaving a positive impact, whether on nature, on societies, on your staff, on guests, and how they behave after they leave your lodge.
Absolutely. And to give a bit of a flavour about the types of accommodation, the lodging that you're going to be developing, is it going to be tented camps? Are there going to be pods? What kind of structures are you specialising in?
So we specialize in three categories of accommodation units. The first one, as you said, is tents, and all their variations. As you know, tents can come, in all shapes and forms. They can be full canvas. They can have they can be made of panels wrapped in canvas with a tented roof. The structure can be different. So this is one category for us. The second category is prefab villas. These prefab villas also can come in any shape or form, but the most important thing is that they are prefabricated in the factory. They come on platforms and they're just placed on site with minimal foundation needed. The third category for us is, if you want, everything else. So alternative units, as we call them. So these could be tree houses, they could be hanging nests, they could be barrels, floating pods if we're on a waterfront. Really, the possibilities are endless. And this is why we work with specialized designers and architects, because not any designer knows how to design such a alternative and creative project. They need to know what they're working on. They have to have experience in these types of properties to be able to think out of the box.
Absolutely. Out of the box is where we need it to be, for sure. So you work with landowners and investors, and your company helps them with the brand side of it and the setting it up, and also then the continual management of that hospitality. And you look for locations such as mountain, desert, waterfront, farm, and heritage. And when I was going through your system and what you're offering, I was really intrigued by your ring system that you explain on your website, which is around your lodges. I find it fascinating because it's to do with, well, I'll let you explain. Tell me a bit more about the ring system.
Yes. So while we were creating ENVI, the brand, the systems, we realized that the experience that we're providing is going to be luxury. It's luxury because it provides, the luxury of being out in nature, of communing with the environment, of interacting authentically with the locals. This is luxury for us. But we also realized that not all lodges will be created equal. There is going to be some differences when it comes to size of units, the facilities that are there, whether every unit has a private pool or not, whether you have one or more restaurants. So all of this would also dictate the investment that is needed to develop the project. And obviously it also dictates the rates at which you can, sell your lodge. And hence we created a system where we differentiate among those three different categories. And we realized also that, the star system does not really apply to us, because the star system is really very limited or very specific to every location, depending on the municipality, on the local regulations, and they're still not really applicable to lodges such as ours. So we needed to create our own system. So we chose the rings the rings of a tree. When you cut a tree, you see different rings that tell you the age of the tree. A ring also signifies eternal life, and this is why you wear a ring on you got married. It signifies commitment. And so we found the ring to be really meaningful for us. And we chose the first category to be our single ring. So we call them single ring lodge. The second is the double ring lodge. And then the third, which would require the highest investment per key and which would command higher ADRs or rates, that would be our triple ring lodge. So every lodge would be labeled with a ring category, and this applies to the entire lodge and not to units within the lodge.
I absolutely love it. I think that whole system is really great for clarifying what it is, but also showing how it's so strongly linked to nature, and also you're linking it to music and art, which I found quite intriguing. Tell me a little bit about that.
So you mentioned the locations, mountain, desert, waterfront, but I also want to mention here the different experiences, the different anchor experiences that we have. Every lodge, every ENVI Lodge will be anchored on one of the 5 experiences that we have. So it could either be an environmental experience, it could be an adventure experience, a wellness experience, an agritourism experience, or a cultural experience. And it all depends on the location, on the product, on the market, the source of market that we're expecting to get, whether we want to target families, whether we want to target couples. So all of this come into play when we decide on our anchor experience. And obviously the activities then follow. The activities can be a mix of different experiences, but there could only be one anchor experience. And when it comes to wellness, we realized that the definition of wellness has changed in the last few years. It's no longer wellness that is restricted to the walls of a spa with, a few treatment rooms, some massage therapists, a hammam, and that's it. No, today wellness has expanded its definition and has become more of well-being, if you want. And when you talk about well-being, this includes food, it includes social well-being, social interaction, it includes music, it includes mental development, mental health. So all of this now needs to be taken into consideration when we create a wellness experience at an ENVI Lodge. And hence, music, arts, culture, is very important for us. And what we did is if you go on our website, you can see a section dedicated specifically for arts. What we want to do is we want to invite artists to work with us, artists from different disciplines. We have our first collaboration with a music curator who curated a playlist for ENVI, inspired by what ENVI stands for. And we're in the process of also working with other artists from different practices and disciplines who will have different types of participation, if you want, whether at the brand level or at the property level.
I'm looking forward to playing the playlist. Actually, I did spot that when I was having a look around, and that's definitely going to be one that I'm going to be listening to later when I'm sorting some stuff out in my office.
Please do.
It's really good. So obviously with this whole vision and what you're going to do, none of this works without having the right investment in place to make it happen. And I know that, like you, there are many business owners out there who have these fantastic ideas. They know what they need to do. They know what they want to develop. They're very clear about it all. But they don't have the investment in place that they need. And so I understand from you that you have been very successful in achieving investment. And as a result, I'd really like to talk about that a little bit more and dive into that a bit more. So is there anything that you feel would be of interest to someone who's currently going through this process, and any tips that you might have? I mean, is there, because I know that an investor wants to invest in the person almost more than the project. The project is important, it's got to be strong, it's got to have real depth to it. But for sure, the investor wants to see that they can work with and believe in the person who's going to be leading it. How let's start with that as a first point. How important do you think that was for your investors? And did you get any feedback around that?
This is very, very, very important. And I cannot stress enough on how important the team is and the founders are to attracting investment. The best idea in the world with the best location and, you know, all the right elements in place with the wrong team is a failing idea. And investors know that because they're usually sophisticated investors, and they know what factors, influence the probability of success in a business. And when we talk about the team, if it's a single founder, it's one thing. It's a riskier investment, I would say, for investors. But when it's a team of multiple members, what investors look for is first, how the team works together. If the team has already done something in the past as a team, and more importantly, the skills and how these skills complement each other. So if the entire team knows how to do one thing, let's say they only deal with operations, but they don't know anything about development, they don't know anything about business and, you know, raising funds or, you know, doing feasibilities, then it's not the proper team. So my advice to anyone who's at such an early stage of, you know, building a business, if they are thinking about bringing a co-founder or more than two co-founders, creating a team, it's very important that their skills complement your skills. So you should look for diversity. You should look for people who come from a different background as yours. So don't look for people who are exactly like you and who know the same things as you, because then, you know, you would be missing a big chunk of the whole picture. This is when it comes to the team. But then obviously there are other factors also that investors look for when they're looking at an investment opportunity. And my advice for people who are now at the stage is don't waste your time with waiting for investors to bring the money. In the meantime, think about how you can create value. If you're raising for a lodge, for example, you can start getting all the preliminary studies or get the preliminary approvals for the land, get all the info regarding development, construction, utilities, electricity, resources, hiring. Who are you going to hire? How many people? How's the space scale? Where are they going to stay? Where are they going to go if the lodge closes, let's say in winter or in summer? All of this information is crucial to investors, not only because, you know, they need this information to make a decision, but also to show them that you've done your homework and you're not just waiting for the paycheck to come for you to start. Anything you can do to create value, build relationships with suppliers, with manufacturers, think about where you're going to source your supplies from. All of this information would show investors how serious you are and that you've been creating value all this while. Obviously,
No, carry on.
Obviously, to reach investors is another, it's another big game and another, long topic that we can talk about. But for me, if I were to give, 3 words of advice, it would be networking, networking, networking.
Absolutely. I was just going to comment on what you were saying there about getting all your ducks in line, really, and doing your homework, adding value. I won't mention where in the world it happened, but there's a bit of a negative story around a business raising investment through crowdfunding means and managed to very quickly get the investment they needed, but then they didn't have their permissions in place. They didn't have everything in place. And so it stumbled completely. And obviously the crowdfunders had invested in it. They weren't able to get what they wanted back from it. So they didn't get their reward for that investment. And it all got very, muddy and bleak for everybody, including the owner, including the investors. And so I wanted to absolutely say that you've hit the nail on the head with that comment and sharing that here, that people really do have to have everything in line. They have to have everything in place. They need to know that they can absolutely do what they're asking for the investment to pay for if they get that investment, and to do it pretty quickly. So I just wanted to, reinforce that point there.
I want to make a comment before we jump into the next point about crowdfunding. It's very important to choose wisely who you want to be part of your company and who's your shareholder. I understand that crowdfunding sometimes is a good solution in some cases, but when you have the luxury to attract a few investors that will come and become shareholders in your company, think about it as a marriage. Think about the long term rather than just, the check that they're going to give you. It's very important to select investors that are strategic to you. So unless you're looking for very high tickets and it's difficult, to raise, and you don't have the luxury to do that, you shouldn't accept what we call, I don't know if we call it internally that, or it's a common term. We say stupid money. So money with no other, benefits. And what we mean by strategic investors is investors that either have experience in the industry, or they have the right relationships. They can open doors for you. They can open markets for you. They can bring other investors with them. These would be the best type of investors to bring in with you.
I've heard it described very similar to how you would go into a job interview, that you would be interviewed yourself as the person who's going for the job, but you would also turn it around and interview the person that you're wanting to work for. So it's exactly the same with investors, isn't it? That they're interviewing you in a way through your investment and everything that you're proposing, but then you need to turn it around and interview them too, to see what skills they can have, what they can bring to the table. And I love that actually that gives the person requesting the investment that little bit of power and understanding that the investor needs you and your idea and your abilities as much as you need them. So it is a trade, it is a two-way trade. And I do love that. So did you say that you wanted to talk about crowdfunding?
No, I just wanted to make a point when you said funding. I don't have experience in crowdfunding because we didn't go there, for the simple reasons that we don't want the headache of many shareholders. So we last June 2021, we concluded our first funding round with angel investors who were friends, family, and their networks. So as you know, angel investors are usually called the 3 Fs. It's family, friends, and fools. Fools because they're taking a risk, a very high risk. They're investing in something that doesn't exist. They're investing in a team and in an idea. And we're currently closing our second funding round, again with private investors and with one institution. It's a bigger round, so we're happy with that. Obviously, we created a lot of value in the meantime. We announced our first signing last month. It's going to be on the Red Sea. It's a beautiful beach lodge on the Red Sea in Saudi Arabia. 40 keys that will hopefully open by end of 2023 or beginning 2024. We've also created a lot of value internally. We've signed partnerships with Beyond Green, which is our Eco Alliance. So Beyond Green is a sustainability alliance of eco hotels, resorts, and lodges. They've vetted our design guidelines, our technical standards, our standard operating procedures, and we're the first company to join them as a brand. They usually onboard properties, but all our properties will undertake or be subject to periodic inspections to make sure that they're in compliance based on more than 50 indicators. We've signed a partnership with Meraki as well, which is a wellness consultancy that really understands how we think about wellness and well-being in the new sense, as I've already mentioned. So a lot of work has been done between the first round and the second round, and we're now ready to scale up, sign more properties. Hopefully we'll be announcing a few soon, and then open and operate.
So how big are you planning for this to go? Are we talking global? Are we talking Middle East? Are we talking Europe?
So from the minute ENVI was created, it was meant to become a global brand before we signed any property. And this is how the systems were put in place. This is how the vision was created, and all the infrastructure that was built as a brand and for an operator. And this makes us different from other brands that have grown, if you want, bottom up. So they've started with one property, operated it for a few years, 7 to 10 years, and then they've seen this model succeed and they decided to take it elsewhere. But this jump from one property to then going elsewhere is usually difficult if you don't have all the systems in place. We created ENVI to become this global brand. Yes, we started in the Middle East because this is where we're located. We're based out of Dubai, and this is where our network is located. But we are ready to move to other regions very soon, if you want, immediately. We're discussing projects in Europe, in Asia, and hopefully in Africa as well. To be honest with you, the Americas and Australia, Oceania are still, they are under our radar, but we don't have any imminent discussions, if you want.
To be continued, I would say, probably.
Of course.
So, because you have had such success with your investors and your investment program, other than what you've already explained so far, are there any other key tips that you would give somebody who is in, the same kind of place as you, or earlier on in the investment kind of program that you're currently in?
First of all, it's very important to understand that raising money takes time. So don't plan, if you start discussions and you get interest from investors, don't think that you're going to get the money next month. So don't plan to have the money in your bank soon. There's a lot of work, a lot of paperwork that is involved, from due diligence, from negotiating commercial terms, legal terms, and all of this takes time. And then you might find yourself, short on cash if you have commitments. So time is key. Second, obviously investors ask for a business plan for the next 2, 3, 5 years. And while you're raising money based on this business plan, you have to be conservative. When it comes to cost, you have to add a safety net. When it comes to revenue, you have to be conservative. I've learned one, sentence from a friend of mine who's into investments. He told me, never bet on the high, always bet on the low, because the high is a bonus. It could or could not happen. But when you're building your business plan and you're raising money based on that, never bet on the high. It's also important to always stay informed about what's happening in the industry. And hence, you and I met in Slovenia, Sarah, because we were at a conference staying informed about what's happening in the glamping industry. And I go back to my point on networking. And when I say networking, it's not only to raise funds, it's also to get ideas. You never know, ideas come from places where you least expect it. Speak to people from different industries, from different practices, different levels. People from other industries can give you ideas better than people from your industry. And this is what we call cross-pollination of ideas. When you bring, ideas from different sectors, different businesses, and apply them, to your project, they can be really successful because nobody has ever thought about doing that. So speaking to people, presenting your ideas, don't be, I don't know how you say, overprotective. It's the idea is not the valuable thing that you have. The valuable thing is you, your team, and the execution. And there's really room for everyone. Talking about your idea or your project is not going to make someone want to steal it and do it, himself or herself.
Yeah, that's that whole thing about scarcity, isn't it? When you're concerned, you think things are scarce, resources are scarce, guests are scarce, money is scarce. That's when you start holding your cards too close to your chest and you miss out on all those opportunities. And I totally agree with you. There's nothing wrong with a bit of competition. There's nothing wrong with discussing things with competitors or even working in partnership with them. I think that and there are unscrupulous people who will take things from your idea and maybe apply it to them. But I'd like to think that because ideas like yours have such big values and a great ethos that's rooted in sustainability and the environment and everything else, that they would hopefully be taking things like that away and using that. And that only adds to us helping tourism support the earth and everything in it. So for me, that's like making the idea bigger.
Exactly. If you have a genuine interest in positively impacting the earth through tourism, then having other people doing it would serve your purpose as well. And that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So thank you for all of those tips. They're fantastic tips and I couldn't agree more. But I'm really interested as well in how lockdown maybe could have influenced projects like your own and maybe the investors' focus right now. And I just wanted to float it with you because during lockdown, obviously we all saw clear skies, there were less aeroplanes, we were maybe having to take our rest time and our holiday time and family time closer to home, and we were able to go to and try out different things like glamping. Glamping shot up in terms of its popularity. People could see it as having lots of open air, lots of space, interaction with nature, and they saw that as a really big bonus considering they couldn't do what they would normally do and they were restricted. And so I think it really kind of changed the traveler. And I'm wondering if it also changed the investor and what they are now looking for. How would you say, how important is this? And do you think it has influenced the investor?
It has influenced the investor 100%. One, because these investors are now seeing how demand for these properties and these projects has increased. And obviously investors want to invest where the demand is, but also because investors are now more sophisticated and more aware about how their investment can impact the environment. Obviously, this has been going on even before COVID, but COVID accelerated this trend, and we're now seeing more and more investors focusing on impact investment, and authorities giving some benefits to investment that have positive impact.
I think that is a really good word, or two words, impact investment. And I think that's definitely something to have in mind for the person who is developing their project right now. So if they're listening to you now and they'd like to get in touch with you, speak to you about ENVI, speak to you about maybe the land they own or anything else, how would they do it? How is it best for them to contact you?
I think the best way is to go on our website, which is www.envilodges.com, and just click on contact us, and we'll be very happy to have a chat.
Well, it's been fantastic speaking to you today. And, I find it really inspiring to hear about the success of businesses like your own and ideas like your own, which have such a really good anchor in, my own values and my own ethos, which is around the environment. And I love that. And so I am very grateful that you shared your views around investment as well with my listeners. And, I wish you the best of luck, you and your team. I think you're going to be incredibly successful. And in fact, I'm going to probably right now invite you back to the podcast when we see you blooming in success across the world. And I'll probably come to you and say, can we talk about some lessons learned over the years or over that time? So thank you so much, Noelle. It's really brilliant to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and it would be my pleasure to be back.
I wish you the greatest success, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.